We are 14 weeks away from the general election, and while officials work on plans to help Hoosiers vote during a pandemic, groups are working to make sure everyone knows they have the right to vote. RTV6's Cornelia Soccer shows you which groups they are reaching out to.
After Election Day or after the deadline to register to vote, we were receiving requests for people wondering if they had the right to vote, and oftentimes they did have the right to vote.
That's Katie Blair, ACLU of Indiana's Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, explaining why they started the Yes You Can Vote campaign back in 2018. They target this voting education to specific groups.
We receive a ton of requests for information from previously incarcerated Hoosiers who would like to know what their rights are at the voting booth.
Voting rights in Indiana are restored when a person gets out of jail or prison. The only time they can't vote is when they're serving their sentence.
An individual who is on parole or probation or even in jail waiting trial, they have the right to vote.
Katie says that's something anyone impacted by the justice system should be aware of. She also says the ACLU gets questions about voting from some of those in the LGBTQ community.
Transgender people have a lot of concerns when they go to the polls, primarily being outed.
If the fear of being outed, either having their gender identity pointed out or being misgendered, doesn't keep trans folk from voting, the fear of a poll worker not accepting their ID might also keep them from voting. Katie says they need to hear this.
Folks need to know that they all they have to do is be registered with the name that is on their legal state-issued ID, and they should have no problems at the polls.
If you're a person who happens to have some sort of disability, Katie says you need to know there are accommodations you can request so you can exercise your right to vote.
Voters that require assistance at the polls can designate a friend, family member, or a trained poll worker to help them fill out their ballot.
I asked why the ACLU was targeting these specific groups, informing them of their right to vote, and Katie said it's simple.
We wanted to make sure that we can educate people so that they know going into November all of their rights and are able to make their voices heard on Election Day.
Working for you, Cornelia Soccer, RTV6.
And college students and recently naturalized citizens are also groups the ACLU of Indiana is hoping to inform with their Yes You Can Vote campaign. Students can register to vote wherever they consider home, and naturalized citizens have the same right to vote as someone who was born in the United States.